Welcome back to the 3D Cookup Show, the show that should inspire you to create some cool portfolio pieces. Are you a big procrastinator? Because I certainly am. My school community is launching in 3 hours, together with my Blender Essentials course, and I still haven't created the title design for it. Which means we have 3 hours to come up with an idea, model everything we need, texture everything, and finish the whole title animation. And I'm back. So the first step is actually to find the general idea for the title design. The problem with this step is, this can go really quickly, this can also take a while. So before we wait any longer, let me see what I can find. Alright guys, as you can see, I picked out a lot of visual references that I can use to later on start creating my title design. And I got a really good idea in the process as well. Every letter of the title is going to represent a certain module from my course. That way the title design will show the wide spectrum of projects that are actually going to be taught inside of the course. This also works with all of the visual references I picked out, as they are all very colorful and playful. Most of these references are found on Behance, Pinterest, and Google Images. As the mood board and the general idea is set, we can continue to the next step. Finding the general concept only took me about 30 minutes, so we still have 2.5 hours left. As each letter will represent a module from my course, let me jump into Illustrator and create the base design for the actual title.
Now everybody do the propaganda and sing along to the age of paranoia.
Alright, and I'm done. As I was finished picking the font and adjusting the sizing, I started getting screenshots from my course modules, also put them into Illustrator, and then connected these with the corresponding letters. I just used red lines to connect them. It kind of looks like one of these FBI boards, but trust me, this is enough as a reference point to not get lost as soon as we're starting to work in Blender. So without further ado, let's jump into Blender.
Welcome to a new kind of tension all across the alien mission, where everything is meant to be okay. The television dreams of tomorrow, where not the ones that meant to.
Before jumping into Blender, I actually created a quick illustration in Illustrator to check on the color matching of these separate letters. As soon as I'd done that, I exported the main text as an SVG file, imported it into Blender, and extruded as well as beveled it. We're going to start with the first letter, which is E. This letter will represent the modern logo animation module of my course. To get the actual aesthetic going, I had to first off create the structure of the actual letter. For this, I separated the outlines and converted them into curves. Then I had to extrude them, add a solidify as well as a bevel modifier. That way it was really easy to modify all the pieces, so I could just copy them, added some connection pieces, and that way we had the structure of the E already done. Then I added planes who had modifiers applied to them, which made them roll onto the wooden structure, kind of like duct tape being applied. The setup is only revealed in the course. As all of that was finished, I added a wood material to the structure and a denim material to the planes. Now we're coming to the next two letters, which are two S's. Both letters I added a remesh modifier to, so I could sculpt some bumps and dents into it. I then created a cube, stretched it around the two letters, added a cloth simulation to it, and played around with the pressure value, so the cloth is actually being sucked in, and with a collision modifier applied to the two letters, the cloth kind of wrapped around them. These letters are representing the stylized visualizer module of my course. Before I baked the simulation, I actually animated the rotation value of the two letters to make it look a little bit more interesting. The letters themselves got a very simple brown material, and the cloth I gave a kind of a fall material, which was a mixture out of a glass and a glossy shader node.
Hear the sound of the falling rain, coming down like an Armageddon flame. A shame, the ones who died without a name.
To the second E, I applied a remesh modifier so I can smooth out the letter, and then I added a normal gold material. Afterwards, I added a very simple 3-point lighting setup to check the general aesthetic of the scene. As there was still a bit of light missing, I created a cube, deleted the top face, and put it beneath the font. That way I had a lot of light reflections. As I needed the font on transparent background, I set the visibility of this box to hold out. That way it's not visible in the final render, but it still reflects the light as I needed to. I also added a remesh modifier to the letter N, smoothed it out a little bit, and then afterwards added a displace modifier. That way it had a very bumpy surface. I connected the displace modifier to a null, that way I could also animate the bumpy surface of the letter. I added a very simple red material to it, that way it looked like the planet from my basic motion design module. The T got a very simple blue shiny material applied to it. The I got kind of a glossy material, which was a mixture out of a glass and a glossy texture node again. This way I played around with the reflection color, so you get some cool color tones depending on how the light impacts on the letter. The letter A got a brick wall texture applied to it, and the simple deform modifier, as that is something that I'm playing around with in the surreal environments module of my course. I still wasn't 100% sure on what to do with the letters I and L, so I carried on to other letters before I decided on what to actually do with them too.
I beg to dream and differ from all eyes. It's the dawning of the rest of our lives.
I then continued on to the last letter, which was the S. I gave it a rough rubber material, remeshed it, I selected the outside edges, gave them a vertex group, called it pin, gave it a cloth simulation, and chose pin as the pinned vertex group. Then I animated the pressure property. That way the letter was blowing up and subtracting over and over again, which kind of gave it a very cool balloony type look. I actually later on switched the materials from the I and the L letter, but at this point I gave the L a green material and created some leaves as a particle hair system that I can put on that. I actually stole the grappling hook from the stylized social media assets module and pasted it into my scene. That way the grappling hook could grab onto the letter L and actually put it in place. Afterwards I imported the Blender logo as an SVG, extruded it, gave it the normal logo colors and put it on top of the grappling hook. At this point I switched the materials from the letter I and the letter L, as the grappling hook was a bit more visible when the L had a very clean material. That way I gave the leaves to the I. After I was done creating the main title design in Blender, I exported the frame, put it into After Effects, animated the remaining titles, rendered those out on transparent, and imported them back into Blender using the images as planes function. Why did I do that? This way I could animate a camera movement inside of Blender, and I didn't have to imitate or retract the footage in After Effects to place the text and have the same movement. As I was finished, I rendered the whole thing out, put it in After Effects, and did some color grading, and chose the color for the background. So, did we get all of this done in time? Let me check. Very close, but we did it. It took me 2 hours and 50 minutes to finish this whole thing. So it went fairly quickly. As I only needed the main branding for the launch of my free school community, I afterwards sat down and created a little teaser for the whole course, using the tile animation as a reference for the color and the style. So here you go, take a look at the final teaser for the Blender Essentials course. Oh hey guys, little announcement. I just launched my free school community, the 3D Kitchen Masterclass. Inside you will find my Blender Basics course, which is for everyone who has never used Blender before. And the course that we're going to be creating the title design for, the Blender Essentials course, is also going to be available inside of the community. This course is packed with 7 different animation styles that are going to help you charge more for your 3D projects and give you the skill sets to tackle any upcoming client projects. We're soon going to be starting with weekly Q&A and feedback calls, and you're going to join a community of like-minded 3D creators. Join the 3D Kitchen Masterclass now. It's the first link in the description. See you guys there. In this time frame, we created the title design, which is going to be used in banners and marketing material, as well as the title animation, which will be used for the trailer and other animated forms of branding. Alright, let's break this whole thing down. So obviously, how long did it take me to create this animation? You're right, it's 3 hours. I think this is a cool project to show how fast you can actually create a branding for something. If you make a course, you sell digital products, or even if you sell actual physical products, the branding is one of the most important things when you're trying to market anything you're selling. selling. It makes your product look more high value and more appealing to any customer who comes across it. And how difficult would I say was this animation? As I could use most of the stuff from my course modules, which is kind of like an asset library, this was pretty easy to do and went really quickly. So I would give this animation 2 out of 5 default cubes. And let's say you create an animation like this for a client. How much could you charge for an animation like this? I would say the low end you can charge is around $600. But depending on what kind of product it is and what kind of client you have, you can easily charge up to 1.5K for something like this. And I'm only talking about just the title animation, not the whole teaser. In this case, we didn't only animate the title design, we actually created it as well. That means it's a whole branding asset. It creates the whole vibe and the whole look and feel for the product or service that this design is made for. I mean, I might be wrong, but Artem, what do you think of this?
Bullshit.
Thank you, Artem. Can we get some likes for Artem? Alright guys, and there you have it. Make sure to join my free school community. It's the first link in the description. And if you haven't already, leave a like, leave a sub, and I will see you in the next 3D Cookup show.